Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let us talk about Ricky Starks, GCW, AEW, and everything in between. So there's a lot going on here. I'm going to have to try to take this in chunks. So the main gist of this video is about GCW losing Ricky Starks because AEW pulled the plug on him. And this is going to be a slight investigation. The original version of this video had me playing audio clips, but the clips were extra long in order to get full context, and it made this video really, really long. It was like over an hour. So I decided to truncate it as much as possible. I'm not even going to read any articles. I'm just going to tell you where you'll be able to find the actual clips. So what happened? All right, so what announced on Tuesday, November 26th, is that Ricky Starks was pulled from all GCW events, which includes their Hammerstein Ballroom show in December. Or January, I'm sorry. January 19th, I believe it is. So Ricky Starks made his first appearance for GCW on November 23rd. Is it 20? Yeah, the 23rd. And he was going to wrestle Matt Cardona December the 14th. So Ricky Starks had been sitting at home. He was, from the Chris Van Vliet interview, we realized that he has not wrestled for AEW since March. It is almost December, so we're talking about 8 months with this guy not working. That's too damn long for my taste. And this is somebody who is generally pro-company when it comes to these contract disputes. It also came out the same day, November 26th, that Ricky Starks' contract was actually up in the spring, but then AEW exercised their option to pick it up for another year. So his contract will not expire until spring in 2025. So this means that this guy's going to have an excessive amount of time off. He's already been off since March, and there is no signs that he's going to be back in AEW before then. So from the Chris Van Vliet interview, he did not express that he wanted to return to AEW, but that, he's not lazy. He's always a hard worker. He's always interested in working. He doesn't want to be frozen out. He doesn't want to miss his prime, essentially. But he did not expressly say he wanted to go back to work to AEW. He did not say that. Now, what we learn from context clues, and because I kind of follow indie wrestling, I did not see that Tony Khan pulled Ricky Starks from House of Glory. He was also booked for House of Glory at some point in time in the future. And I don't see that has been canceled. So specifically what we're looking at here is a GCW problem. Now, staying on the GCW issue, it must be noted that not only did Ricky Starks appear at a GCW show, shoot an angle, get booked against Matt Cardona, and was likely going to get booked at the Hammerstein Ballroom show, but Jon Moxley, the AEW World Champion, and Marina Shafir, his consort, I guess, they also worked a GCW branded Bloodshot show on the 24th, if I remember correctly, the 24th of November. So I'm giving you the timeline here because Fightful is giving the excuse that Effy made some comments on his podcast. He has his own podcast where he made the comment that Tony Khan's father is giving him money to go away, and that AEW is running $40 million in debt, and they can't sell out a building. Ring of Honor is dead. All these sorts of crazy things that Effy came out and said that probably pissed off the AEW fans and maybe AEW management, all of which might be true. Same time though, Effy is just a talent. As far as I know, Brett Lauderdale owns GCW and books GCW. Maybe Effy has more stroke in that company, than he has let on, but he is one of the mascots of GCW, much like the Orange Cassidy of GCW, as I say, or I call him Moxley's boyfriend. So he made all these comments that were supposedly very offensive to Tony Khan, and that's why he pulled Ricky Starks. But Effy is just a talent. Effy is just, he's not in the office, as far as I know. Now, if he is in the office, still you're punishing the fans mostly by pulling Ricky Starks from the show. I guess you are kind of pulling, you're kind of hurting Ricky too, because he's missing out on these dates. But unless you're going to lean on Brett Lauderdale to punish Effy for something he said on a podcast, there's nothing you could do when the boys are kind of, again, independent contractors and can say whatever they want. But that wasn't the only real issue here. It was also floating around the internet that GCW had their street team floating around Full Gear. Now, Full Gear took place on Saturday, the 23rd, if I remember correctly. And their street team was walking around handing out flyers. Now, some AEW fans claimed that they were handing out tickets. And this began a whole thing that Brett Lauderdale had to talk about on Twitter, that the GCW street team, the street team are just basically people who pass out flyers and help promote the various brands. So because Full Gear was in New York, New Jersey, and GCW is running the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York, they had some guys come from New York to help promote their Hammerstein Ballroom shows. And some AEW fans have decided to take that and then claim that they were giving away free tickets because they can't sell tickets. So that became a whole thing that adds to this, as Brett Lauderdale is arguing with AEW fans. Okay, that had nothing to do with Tony Khan, though. It's about Brett Lauderdale trying to, and as you can find this on his Twitter account, as he's trying to correct the record that they're not giving away tickets to GCW shows at AEW. They were just trying to go out and give people flyers. That's it. So you got a lot of stuff going on here. These guys are operating in the same pool. GCW booked the Hammerstein Ballroom for January, and then AEW booked it for December, late December. They're going to run 3 shows. This pissed off Brett Lauderdale. It pissed off Effy, which is why Effy made all these comments about Tony Khan and his daddy and how terrible Ring of Honor is and how cold and dead AEW is. So in response to that, you get Brett Lauderdale booking Ricky Starks. And Ricky Starks had, again, basically fell off the face of the earth for 7 months. And then all of a sudden, here he is on a GCW show, complete and total surprise. Now, as everybody knows, Tony Khan has to approve of Ricky Starks' appearances. So that means he knew that Ricky Starks was going to be there. So it wasn't a surprise to him. Now, if it comes out later on that he didn't know, and that Ricky Starks basically just shot his own angle and went and did this thing without permission, and that's why he's being pulled, I mean, that could be the case. We don't know for sure. But Brett Lauderdale has worked with AEW before. Again, Marina Shafir has worked pretty much every Bloodsport show since Josh Barnett took over. And I'm assuming all of those bookings went through AEW and everything worked out fine. Moxley also worked quite a few of those shows as well. So the working relationship between AEW and GCW, it's a tenuous relationship. It might be a situation where if we look at everything objectively and we say, okay, it's not that Tony is freezing Ricky Starks from working anywhere, because he is letting him work in House of Glory, as far as we know. He hasn't been pulled yet. And it's not that he doesn't want AEW talent on GCW programs, because he's allowing Marina Shafir to do these shows, and he let Jon Moxley go to Bloodsport. So what specifically is the issue here? And to me, the explicit issue here is that Tony Khan has a talent in Ricky Starks that people might want to pay to see. And he was going to be promoted. The poster was already made for the Hammerstein Ballroom show, which was going to occur after AEW was going to be in the Hammerstein Ballroom. So logic would dictate that I'm not going to let you use my talent against me. That would be common sense, right? You're going to promote a talent that I have under contract while actually complaining that I'm encroaching on your time, which there should be, a buffer in between these events. Usually in a WWE contract, they would negotiate some kind of buffer where, 4 weeks before or 4 weeks after, you cannot book a similar product. So it would make GCW or AEW to push their product forward or backwards or whatever, right? But considering that doesn't exist in this place, you've got AEW running 3 shows in the Hammerstein Ballroom 2 to 3 weeks before GCW has their show. But GCW wants to book an AEW talent for that show, while at the same time, they have a GCW talent dissing AEW on his podcast. I understand how that's problematic. As much as I don't like Tony Khan, and I think that he's a weak leader, I think his weak leadership is not showing by pulling Ricky Starks from the GCW shows, because that's actually good business. Because, you want people to come to your show. Why do you give a fuck about GCW shows? GCW shows are not your responsibility. Your show is your responsibility. And if you're not going to book Ricky Starks for your show in the Hammerstein Ballroom, you damn sure shouldn't help Brett Lauderdale by letting him book Ricky Starks at a Hammerstein Ballroom show on his show, right? So that's just common sense. It's good business. The terrible leadership actually comes from, if you listen to the Chris Van Vliet, Ricky Starks interview, and he alludes to some things, okay? He talks about it being cold in Texas, and he said it was a cold day, and maybe it's been cold for 9 months. And one of the things that you get, if you listen to that Chris Van Vliet interview, one of the things that you will get is that Ricky Starks is 3 things absolutely. 1, he's very cocky. 2, he's very spicy, very saucy, as some would say. And 3, he's kind of confrontational. What the fuck about it? So you have that sort of personality. And he talks about being seen on the footage at the Royal Rumble 2023 and somebody telling him it was a bad look. And he was like, how was it a bad look? It's backstage. It's not on camera. And he's not wrong by any stretch of the imagination. But what could have gone wrong, I can foresee, is that if somebody comes to you and says that this is probably not good and you snap at them, especially if it was the way that he talked about it. And, again, we're talking about a guy now who has been dealing with this for a while. He's been listening to this on social media. Perhaps he's frustrated with it now. That's why he's so hot-tempered about it and, spicy and, confrontational about it. Maybe at the time he wouldn't. But looking at his response in that interview, you can see how that might be a problem. Even if it wasn't a problem that you went to the show, your reaction to somebody talking to you about it could be a problem. And if you put that into the bucket with all the other things, him pissing off Edge with the promo, calling them bug eyes and basically laughing at him and that kind of stuff. The way his attitude when CM Punk got fired and Ricky Starks admitted he had an attitude about that because it halted his career. And there's a big Sasha Banks-ish thing about that too that I want to talk about in a second. But when you put all these things together, it could be that these folks just don't want to deal with you anymore. And it's just, you have pushed them to their limit. One thing that you realize with Tony Khan is he's not confrontational. He would prefer that other people handle these things. He's not that hands-on. He would prefer other people handle these things. He would also prefer it to be quiet, you know? But that doesn't seem like to be the way that somebody like Ricky Starks wants to handle it. You know, not saying that he wants everything to be loud and public, but he doesn't understand the subtleties of what Tony Khan has got going on here. One of the things that we learned from looking at how Tony Khan handles business is once he's done with a talent, he tries to avoid them, right? Big Swole talked about this. Jonathan Gresham talked about this. That Tony Khan, once he's angry at you or upset with you, he gives you the cold shoulder and you can't find him. You can't find him anywhere in the building. You can't get him on the phone. He's basically vanished from planet Earth and you can't find him. And that seems to be what Ricky Starks is dealing with right now, is because he might be confrontational and want to know why he hasn't been booked. And maybe he's calling Tony Khan and he's texting him and trying to see what's going on. And Tony's just kind of like, I'm not interested. And yes, that's poor leadership, because communication should be one of the top things involved in anybody who has a leadership position. As you need to be able to keep people abreast of what's going on and not leave them in limbo for 7 fucking months. All right. Ricky Starks should certainly sue to get out this fucking contract. All right. 7 months without working. That's ridiculous. It's as bad as when WWE did it. You know, it's horrible to have this guy under contract all this time. And Ricky is like, look, I'm getting paid, sure, but he doesn't care about that. He doesn't want to miss more opportunities. And he's going to have all this time sitting on the bench doing nothing when he could be out earning, increasing his profile, increasing his platform, etc. It's not just about the money. I mean, he's sitting on his ass. He's already collected the money. So that's just, you know, now he's looking at bigger and better things. And that brings me to the one thing about Ricky Starks that kind of rung my bell is he was talking about when CM Punk got fired. And he went out there and he cut this promo about being frustrated. And he says that somebody told him that he should be grateful he still has a job. To which Ricky Starks was offended and said that it set him off because he worked very hard for what every position that he's had and everything that he's done. And how dare you expect him to be okay with crumbs? That was almost his exact words. And it really rung my bell because it connected with the diva shit that Sasha Banks was talking when she was on the Stone Cold podcast. When she was upset about Ronda Rousey, all the money Ronda Rousey was getting, how Ronda Rousey had her own locker room, and how Sasha Banks was really the star, and how she should have all this stuff. And then she went into the, I want to eat steak just like Vince. You know, I'm no longer just happy to be here. I'm no longer just grateful for the opportunity. Now I want more. And again, I think it's generally a positive for individuals to have a chip on their shoulder and to want more out of life. I'm not saying these people should stagnate. What I am saying is, depending on how you responded to that comment, it can be viewed as being arrogant and ungrateful. And those are two things people do not want to see put together. People do not want to deal with arrogant folks. They do not want to deal with people who are ungrateful. To that point, Swerve Strickland in many interviews has discussed that he took every opportunity that was available to him in AEW, which included the tag team with Keith Lee. It includes doing jobs on television if he needed to do jobs. He just wanted to get on television, to get the opportunity to get Tony Khan to trust him so that he could, you know, increase his platform and increase his value. This is what he told everybody in various interviews. So now people are taking that mindset and looking at Ricky Starks and saying, okay, Ricky Starks is refusing creative. He didn't say he refused creative. He did say he did not want to do the tag team with Big Bill because he had done something similar already with Will Hobbs, and that's understandable, but the idea is that Ricky Starks is a guy who is difficult to work with. He has a bad attitude. He's a diva. He's confrontational, and he's turning down creative. He's the opposite of what Swerve Strickland is. Swerve was humble. He went out there and took the most, did the best, whatever you gave him, while Ricky Starks was never happy with anything, always complaining, etc. That's generally the stereotype. Now, we don't know how true any of that stuff is. And Ricky Starks kind of, in the later part of the interview with Chris Van Vliet, says that he was denying that he was lazy, that he was difficult to work with, that he had ever gotten arrested in Calgary, which was a story that was insightful, and they had to admit that it was insightful. Basically said that all that stuff wasn't true, and it was all planted to make him look bad. So now he's paralleling to CM Punk, because CM Punk's whole thing was AEW and the executives and people therein are using the wrestling media to hold me down, to make me look bad. And now Ricky Starks is saying the same thing. I was never difficult to work with, never turning down creative, never did this, never did that. There were certain things he was not okay with because they were steps back, like the tag team with Big Bill. But he wanted to do more, and he had somebody who was there helping him and coaching him in CM Punk, and he discussed how CM Punk helped grow his character and grow his persona on Collision, and then Punk was taken away, and then all of that changed, and that's what frustrated him. So I 100% understand that you had a good thing going, you had some momentum, and then they yanked it away. I understand that you wanted more out of your career, and you don't just want to be seen as a tag team guy or the small man and a big guy, little guy tag team. I get that too. I get that you want the opportunities or feel you have the talent to be world champion. I get that too. But it's all about how you express that and how you approach other people in those conversations. And we don't know how he approached people in those conversations, but clearly since they had him sitting home for 7 months, it didn't work out the way that he wanted it to work out. So you could ask the question, was it Effy? And you would basically say, why would a wrestler offend Tony Khan so badly that Tony Khan would ruin his reputation with the wrestling media and the wrestling fan base by pulling Ricky Starks from pay-per-view? Just because Effy said something stupid. Who the fuck is Effy and who cares? Even if that did offend you that much, you're going to piss off everybody because Effy made you mad? I mean, that doesn't make much sense. So it could very well be true that Effy's words is what ruined this thing. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of the business is a strong incentive to not have Ricky Starks there because you are running a show 2 to 3 weeks before GCW, and you want people to spend money at your show, not their show. So you're not going to let them promote your talent on their show so that people can hold their money and go to their show instead of going to yours. That seems to be a strong business incentive there. And since they didn't pull Ricky Starks from any other programs, from my knowledge, that's likely what it is. Maybe there's propaganda that is trying to use Effy as an excuse. Now, the reason why I say this is because now I looked and Effy's comments were actually, I don't know when they were recorded on the podcast, but they've been out there since November the 18th. So you're talking about almost a week before Ricky Starks made an appearance at GCW. So if it was Effy's comment that pissed off Tony Khan and said, okay, that's it, why didn't he pull the very first Ricky Starks appearance? Why is it that once Ricky Starks is booked to wrestle in December and then likely booked to wrestle in January, did Tony Khan decide to step in and say he can't work these shows? And then blame Effy when Effy's comments were over a week before. You know, that's an interesting bit. You know, again, this whole thing between GCW and AEW has been going on for almost all month, the entire month of November, it seems like. So the idea that Tony Khan would wait until Ricky Starks was already booked not once but twice and then decide that Effy's comments offended him and then he pulled them, well, you could always say, look, he didn't hear it until just now. He didn't hear it until recently. All right. So if that's the case and he just didn't hear it until now, it's just a talent. It's still just one guy. I mean, there have been plenty of wrestlers who have said things that I'm pretty sure are hurtful and screwed up. And you want to punish the company, but also the fans and the wrestler that you were going to lend out, and your own company, because I'm sure you were going to make something off of that in terms of a booking fee. So what's the benefit? You upset that Effy mentioned your dad. Okay, fine. Now the fans are mad because you've taken Ricky Starks away from not just New York, but also from the people that they were going to wrestle in front of in December. You pulled them from that show too. That pisses everybody off. Now, I'm also smart enough to realize that if it was only pure business, then you could have pulled him just from the Hammerstein show and told Brett Lauderdale, okay, you could use him in December and you could use him in February, but you can't use him at the Hammerstein show. Sure, you could have done that too. So clearly, Tony Khan is being petty about something. And I'm just looking at the back and forth of what it could be. Could it be Effy was offensive and pissed him off, and he decided to punish GCW in totality for it, and including their fan base? It's entirely true. Is it a business decision where you don't want a guy to get hot and he's under your contract, but he clearly is not that interested in working for you? In fact, he might want to leave and go increase his profile in New York City, which of course he may end up working there, more regularly as a member of the WWE roster. And you're like, no, not under my watch. Maybe that could be another thing. Could it be the issue that Ricky Starks himself, put himself in this situation by some of the comments that he made? Even though I think the Chris Van Vliet interview was mild. He didn't say anything in it that would get him shit canned. He didn't cuss anybody out. He basically just admitted that he was in limbo right now, and then talked about some of the controversies from his perspective. And the controversies are light. The controversies were, I went to go see Cody Rhodes at the Royal Rumble. It's like, so what? He said he went to WrestleMania and watched from the skybox. So what? There's a bunch of other people there too. A bunch of other wrestlers have gone to other wrestling shows. Now, usually they try to be more conspicuous, where they'll go into the crowd, wear a hood and a mask and all that kind of stuff. Which is, with Sasha Banks went to go see Naomi and TNA, she basically was bundled up the entire time so she wouldn't be recognized. And Bayley did something similar when she went to go support Sasha Banks in Japan. So it's like, yeah, talent do this stuff all the time, but they're rarely in position to be recorded. But that to me seems minor. It's a relatively minor infraction to get caught on another person's television or getting caught in their crowd. It's like, so what? I mean, I think it happened to Britt Baker once, that she was sitting front row at NXT and they filmed her because they didn't know that she was dating Adam Cole at the time. And they thought she was like a regular fan, and she got recorded. She was front and center. She wasn't in the skybox or off camera. She was front and center on camera. And you didn't see that caused any rifts in her career. So why would it all of a sudden hurt the career of Ricky Starks? So even though Fightful is putting out all these interviews or these articles claiming that it's Effy's fault and this whole thing with GCW is kind of slowly boiling over, I'm thinking they're running a screen here by blaming Effy's ridiculous and stupid comments as being the reason why Ricky Starks can't work the GCW shows. But at the same time, I don't see that he's going to pull Marina Shafir from all future Bloodsport shows. And I'm not saying that he's going to pull Jon Moxley from all future Bloodshot shows. So is it a AEW GCW issue, or is it an AEW Ricky Starks issue? And I think that the question remains quite open. But let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you later.
No one does it better.